What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So hopefully you had a good weekend overall. I had a lot of fun here. I actually took apart that Famicom. I've been looking for a Nintendo Famicom system from Japan for a while. Finally got a hold of one, so of course we took it apart. I mean, that's what I was going to do anyway, right? That's how it was going to go. And I also played a lot of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and I'm having a ton of fun with that, so look out for some of my thoughts and impressions on that game. Hopefully in the next day or two. I wanted to wrap it all up since I'm just about done, at least the first playthrough of the story. As for today, we have a bunch of stuff to go over because it appears that the Switch hacking community is at it again. They have almost, I would say almost perfected something that a lot of us have been asking for, which seems basic, but it really shows the potential of the Switch, which is one of the reasons I wanted to show it to you guys here today. Also, believe it or not, the Smok Z, the Smash Z, it's actually back. I can't believe it either, because we talked about this thing back before the Switch came out as a quote-unquote Switch killer. Yeah, so you're gonna want to see this. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure the like button, it does help out, and get subscribed as we go forward with gaming news. Just keep you up to date so you always know pretty much what's going on in the gaming world pretty much every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time right here. Today, actually, guys, we're going to start with CTR, Crash Team Racing, which is a game that I've actually been playing a ton of. Been playing it on the Xbox. I like that game a lot. But on the Switch, you may have noticed some very long load times. We talked about before that Boost Mode would be incorporated in an update. That update went live over the weekend, and we've seen some results from it which have significantly cut down the load times on the Switch version pretty well, about 15 to 20 seconds depending on the level, which puts it closer to what the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 load times were. When I was playing it quite a bit on the Xbox, I noticed load times were noticeable, but after hearing what they were on the Switch, I was like, man, that is something else. That would get frustrating. But to hear about Boost Mode, which of course clocks the CPU up to cut down on it, being incorporated is great. I think most games should just use it by default, like while they're designing it, just because it does cut down on load times pretty well from pretty much every one we've seen it incorporated into. And in some odd retro news that probably doesn't fit in anywhere else, Goldeneye, which is a game I tested fairly recently with the Super 64, still doesn't control very well with a single analog stick and the Nintendo 64, controller and running at like 10 to 15 frames per second. However, it didn't stop this YouTuber here, Jackson, from actually completing it with a piano keyboard. I'm not kidding. There was full footage of it. It's a very interesting thing to see because as they're playing through it, there is actual music being played. So I guess technically, when you read the title saying, Goldeneye first level played on piano, you don't really think right away that it's them playing it and actually beating it controlled by a piano. But they did it the whole first level. It's an interesting thing to watch. I would go check it out because it was actually pretty fun to see. And I mean, you get a lot of life out of these retro games, obviously, so maybe they'll try another game with the keyboard. We'll see. We also know the Switch Lite is out in September 20th, same day as Zelda, for example. It's gonna be a very expensive day, obviously, but we know it's coming out. Something a lot of people were wondering about were things like cases, for example, or third-party accessories, and if they would be available right away. Well, Hori actually posted that will be the case. They posted a full blog post, and yes, it looks like they'll have several different accessories that include cases and others pretty much available day one according to them. Now, I'm curious what some of the cases will look like for it and if it will add that much extra heft to it, or if they'll mostly be kind of like those slimline cases that really don't add a lot to it in terms of, I guess, protection, but just really make it so you won't scratch them up or anything. Because I'm sure we'll also maybe get battery cases, maybe? I mean, there's a whole ton of stuff around the Switch Lite and everything they can do with it. The one thing you'll see, I assume almost every single case that comes out will have a kickstand and take advantage of the fact that this just doesn't have one. I mean, they pretty much have to have it, I assume, because it's probably an easy thing to drop on there. Also, Dragon Quest XI S fans, or just Dragon Quest XI fans, looking forward to Dragon Quest XI S on the Switch. It looks amazing, by the way. Played it, beat it on the PS4, Dragon Quest XI, so now I'm really looking forward to the S version so I can play through the 16-bit mode. It has gone gold. At least in Japan, it was shared on Twitter. It has gone gold, which means it's done. It's pretty much ready to go. We're waiting for the Western version, according to them, to finish up because they're going to shoot to launch this thing in September, and I'm, again, excited, really looking forward to it, ready to play back through that game. I like Dragon Quest XI a lot last year when I beat it, so I think everyone should check this one out. Even if you've never played Dragon Quest before, you can jump right into this one and it's fine. It's a traditional old school JRPG, and it just looks like the Switch version had that extra like year or so put into it for Dragon Quest XI S with all the extra features. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. It's gone gold in Japan. I'm waiting for the Western release to also go gold so we can look forward to it. And guys, so with quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start actually today with Splatoon. Now, the final Splatfest took place. The community kind of came together for Order versus Chaos. Chaos won, but the community came together because it was the last Splatfest, the last kind of community event that was going to be organized, and that kind of puts an end to like the live updates that were taking place, I guess, for Splatoon with those events. It was a pretty fun thing to see. You know, you had all kinds of, you had like condiments, right? You had all kinds of stuff happening with these Splatfest, and it was pretty funny to see. People had fun with them, but it does make you wonder what's kind of the future for Splatoon now, because you figure they're finishing up with that so they can then start to work on Splatoon 3. However, in an interview with Famitsu, the producer actually talked to them about Splatoon 3, and it might surprise you what they said. Splatoon 2's production started moving right after 1 was released. Now we also had production for Octo expansion, so we're fully focused on the updates, and we still haven't thought of the future. We'll think of them after everything is over. We're not yet at a phase where we can make a promise, but we'd like to return the favor in some sort of way to many people who have supported us. Basically, they've gone on to say that, yeah, Splatoon 3, we haven't started working on it or anything. It's not even really something we've come together and talked about, I guess, at this point, which might surprise a lot of people right now when it comes to this because of the roaring success and popularity of Splatoon overall, and of course Splatoon 2 in general just by itself. But the Splatoon series has grown so much in just 2 titles. It makes you wonder how much bigger this will get. Now, I looked at this and I said, okay, the team also works like on Animal Crossing and everything, or at least in general. They also work on Animal Crossing. So that, you know, makes sense. All right, that's coming out. Then maybe they'll work on it. But there's also the possibility that maybe Splatoon 3 isn't the next game. Maybe they'll do a spin-off or something and play around with the idea. Maybe they will do Splatoon 3 next, but it's not until the next console or the next generation for Nintendo. I wonder if they need another Splatoon game, Splatoon 3, for this generation. Can it just wait for next gen? I feel like it can, actually. I think Splatoon 2 will continue to sell, right? Word of mouth, people really excited about the online. I think it will continue to sell, and I don't think they necessarily need 3 to split the fan base. I think they'd rather just keep selling 2 and then continue to work on 3 for quite a while. And maybe they also have a spin-off or something planned. I think the Splatoon universe, the lore, can continue to grow even outside of the numbered titles. So hey, if they have a spin-off in mind and they can actually even talk a bit more about the story, that would actually be pretty interesting. Next up, let's talk about the homebrew hacking community and the Switch. And pretty much what they've shown us is that there is a ton of stuff that Nintendo can probably do with the Switch, or at least that the Switch is capable of, right? We've seen them do local backups. They've had local backups to like SD cards for a while now. They've had all kinds of stuff, whether it's emulators on the system, right? So they have their full virtual console going. We've seen it online and everything, of course. But something that people always ask about with the Switch right now is customization options beyond the what we have light and dark themes. We have like white and gray. I'm amazed that nothing has happened outside of that, mostly because Nintendo probably could sell people wallpapers and people would probably buy them, right? Like, let's say there was even a pre-order bonus. Even they could say, hey, if you pre-order this thing, you get the Breath of the Wild 2, you get the wallpaper for your Switch where you could change the background. Well, it looks like not only are Switch Homebrew, the whole scene for that, gone as far as to add themes, they are now just straight up animating them. Like they have full animations and everything, and it is really, really cool looking. This was actually part of a video that was put up by the Homebrew crew, and they go over several different themes and icons and stuff that have been animated. There's like Back to the Future in there, there's Stranger Things. Now, here's the thing, some of those obviously are IPs that Nintendo probably won't deal with, but what I want to step back and look at here is the possibility of some of this stuff, and maybe there'll be a day where the background is like a complete animation and like you can actually have moving backgrounds and stuff. I want to I mostly want to see Nintendo do some of the basic stuff that we've watched people on the other side of the fence with homebrew and all kinds of stuff be able to do. And it sounds like basic stuff if you really think about it. People are still asking for folders. Like folders. And you know why people are asking for folders? Because everyone keeps buying a bunch of games, and obviously Nintendo's getting quite a bit of money from it, but we just have a lot of games that people want to put in, sectioned off folders, and here we are talking about themes and wallpapers and customizing your Switch. It's an odd situation that it almost feels like Nintendo's not doing any updates for the system when it's clearly capable from what we're seeing. Now, there's also the argument that, of course, Nintendo designed the Switch to start up quickly, like no questions asked, start up right away. There was a big thing where they were talking about how all of what you see when you turn it on fits into 200 kilobytes or something crazy of RAM, right? But I think, to be honest, some people would be fine with it taking a small amount extra to start up in terms of time, if they can do all this customization and folders and stuff. I really don't think it's as big of a deal as Nintendo's making it out to be completely honest. And I hope they do eventually update it. And hey, we're coming up on the 1 year for the online, and maybe they have some cool updates in mind, because sometimes they'll drop the updates and all of a sudden something's changed completely, so we'll see. Next up, let's talk about Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 and some of the DLC. Now, there is a full expansion pass you can buy. It's basically a season pass, and they obviously had a lot of this in mind before the game was coming out, right? Where they're probably gonna either work on characters at the release, or they already have them ready and they're gonna sell them after the game comes out, so they can, there's several other developers set up here, and of course Marvel and Disney and Nintendo's obviously put in the mix for the system and everything, but there are a lot of companies looking to make money from this, and that tends to happen with these type of games when it comes to expansion passes, whether it's Spider-Man on the PS4 with Insomniac and their DLC that came out, the next day or the next month. So I'm not surprised to necessarily see this, but some of the DLC they have planned looks pretty cool. In fact, check this out. This is actually from Comic-Con that took place over the weekend, where they announced the first character pack. It appears to be coming September 30th, according to Nintendo UK's website, but check this out, because, yeah, that's right. We got Blade, Moon Knight, Punisher, and Morbius. I saw Punisher, and I was like, oh, that's it. All right, good. I'm gonna have to get this pass then, because they have the Punisher. That is an awesome addition. Blade is really cool too, but those are the two that I'm really looking forward to. Punisher and Blade. That is gonna be awesome. And again, it looks like they're just adding some extra characters into the game. Some I've never heard of or really been that into. This is Marvel Knight's Curse of the Vampire, and these are just some of the first details for it. So we don't really see any gameplay or anything for them or how their character models look in game, but I'm looking forward to it. Launching September 30th, and then we have other packs coming as well. So Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is doing well in the sales already. It's tracking towards the top of Amazon's bestsellers list. Benji Sales on Twitter, who does a lot of the sales and in-depth stuff through NPD, actually tweeted that it was well above his expectations, and it appears that it could be one of the top-selling Switch games so far this year. It looks like they have a hit on their hands, and honestly, if they have good characters to add, it's looking like it's gonna be a lot of fun going forward, even into the back half of this year. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Smok Z or the Smatch Z. I don't think we've all ever figured out how you actually say the name of this thing, but I'm gonna say the Smok Z. I think that sounds better than the Smatch Z. Smok Z. We've actually talked about this before the Switch came out. It was a video we did forever ago, and we talked about how this could be the thing that matches up next to the Switch. There was the GPD Win, which is in its third iteration coming up or something at this point, and the Smok Z still has not done anything. Well, check this out, because someone actually has a prototype of the Smok Z that they were showing off. This is from the channel The Fox, and they showed off several features of this thing to the point where it actually looks like it is fully functional. They're playing games like Doom on there, Sekiro, which Sekiro looks barely playable on this, by the way, but that is a more demanding game than something like Doom, which is heavily optimized. Doom, by the way, was actually touching 60 frames a second a couple times, but then it would drop down into the mid to high 30s when a lot of stuff was happening. My biggest issue about this thing is one, it's massive. Two, it's very loud, and at this time they said it was running on 15 watts, which is just quite a bit of power that they're pushing through there, so battery life is probably not great, and that actually might be why the fan is so loud. but overall, it doesn't look very appealing. It only has one analog stick, which is going to make it difficult, as they showed in Doom, to actually look around, since you're essentially using the Steam controllers like trackpad on the right when you're trying to play a first-person shooter is not ideal. So I don't know when this thing's coming out. That is, according to the Fox, still a pre-production prototype, basically. So I still feel like they're ways off. I feel like they just got it to fit in this case with some of the new Ryzen chipsets that came out. So I don't know. Honestly, maybe we'll be matching this thing up against the next Switch. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one's from Alex, saying Nintendo Switch Do might be digital only, possible like the Xbox One. So this is actually funny, because I read the comment and I said, I don't think that's the case, but what's really funny about that is, let's say the Switch from like day one was digital only, like it was never anything with cartridges planned. What's really interesting about that is actually most of the bottlenecks that took place in the last 2.5 years with the Switch that had to do with cartridge size wouldn't be a bottleneck. Like, that's the one interesting thing to think about. They could have maybe upped the 32 gigabytes to like 64, and then none of these developers would have had to have thought about, can we fit our game on a cartridge? Because that has still kept some developers off of the Switch completely. I was shocked that CD Projekt Red was able to get Witcher on the cartridge, but they're springing for a 32 gigabyte cartridge, and a lot of places are not doing that. Wolfenstein is coming out, this Friday? They're not even doing a cartridge. It's just a code in the box. And that's with Bethesda's relationship with Nintendo. So trust me when I say this, a lot of places passed on some of their games to the Switch just because of that cartridge size. If there was no cartridge and it was digital only and it was all download, some of them probably would have actually shown up with some of their third-party games, and things might have actually looked a little bit different when it came to games. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is Splatoon 3 and the fact that it's not currently in development. Apparently they're maybe planning stages. It's interesting to think about them not jumping on that right away with how popular it is, but hey, I mean, they got to do Animal Crossing, and then maybe they got to figure something else out. We'll see there. Also, what about the Switch themes, folders? Do you ever look, I'm curious, do you ever look at the homebrew community, the hacking community, specifically around what they've been able to make the Switch do when it comes to functionality? I mean, not even talking about them down in games, or anything, just functionality. It's curious why we're 2.5 years into the Switch's lifespan and you only have white and gray backgrounds. And thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.